Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for the Thunderbolts, or just Thunderbolts, technically does not in the title. As this title says though, for my review, there will be spoilers in the second half, and of course, I'll let you guys know when we get to that. So kicking things off, non-spoiler wise, if you have not seen the movie, I say go see it. I'm sure everyone's been saying, not everyone's been saying the same thing, but most people have been saying it's pretty good. It's definitely, some people are like, it's the best thing we've had in forever. I feel like the movies haven't been that horrible. I don't think things have been like the worst of the worst. It's been definitely some highs and some lows. I, of course, enjoyed Captain America, but that definitely wasn't something where it was like, I had my disappointments with it. The reshoots that they ended up having to do with that, unfortunately, very unfortunate. Like the two things that they got with like for Sam Wilson Captain America is like, the pandemic hit them the first time and they had to like redo the whole show and restructure everything they were doing with that and just kind of make it happen. And then whatever they did with the movie was just, I don't understand that. They just had a bunch of reshoots and just weren't making something that should have been made the way it was. I don't understand it. But this movie comes out. I was looking forward to Captain America. I was hoping that would be better than it was for me personally, although I didn't hate it. I think I ended up giving it like a 7 when I first saw it, and I think it was still fun to see like for the first time. I don't think it was horrible. It just had some things where I was like, man, I wish some of this stuff was a little bit better. And then this comes out and I'm like, this is really fun. I really enjoy it. If I had to like give it a number, I'd probably give it like, honestly, like an 8, maybe even 8.5, if I'm being completely honest. I thought it was really good. And I thought the structure of it was fun. The comedy was fun. The action I thought was good, which was actually one of my issues with Captain America. As much action that was in it, specifically the end action was great, but there was some action sequences where I was like, I don't know about that, but I enjoyed it a lot in this. So I was very happy with the action and just the things that I noticed because of my nerdiness when it comes to like action combat in films. So I thought the action was good. The story was good. I thought the comedy was good. The bits and pieces that were in there were pretty fun. And I'm going to say this, I think it has the best post-credit sequence we've ever had in a Marvel movie. It could easily be argued, of course, if people want to go back to like Iron Man 1 because of like just the insanity of like, is that really gonna happen? Of course, I can understand the argument there, but I legit feel like this is the best one we've ever had. It's certainly the best one we've had in maybe like 2 phases. I mean, even, if you go like Infinity War and Endgame, even those don't really, well, Endgame I don't think has one at all. And Infinity War is like the Captain Marvel thing, if I'm not mistaken, is when, the Captain Marvel thing, I think. So for a while, I don't think we've really had one that's made that much of a difference. I'm sure we've had some good ones that, like the comedic ones, like those are fine. It's like, okay, those are funny. And it's like, all right, we got a funny sequence, but this was like really good. Like even if you go back to Doctor Strange, that one should have done more. It should have been like, oh man, they're talking incursions and that means worlds and this and that. But honestly, if you don't know anything about the comics, you have no idea what an incursion is. I didn't even know, I still don't really know who the character was that showed up. I forgot the actress that played her, but she pops up and is like, I don't know who this is, from comics. I'm not that familiar when you're specifically going to Doctor Strange route of things, but I'm like, I know what an incursion is. But even then I was like, this is weird. Like this doesn't, like, it doesn't feel like as crazy as it is as what an incursion is, which that was like how many movies ago, by the way? Like if that was the first time we heard incursions and we're about to finally get to like the actual multiverse, which by the way, a lot of people don't know this was the end of a phase. I know it doesn't feel that way, but this is the end of phase 5. If I'm not mistaken. So take that as you will. Like that's where we are right now. This was an end of a phase and it's absolute insanity because none of the movies have felt like a phase for like the last couple of years, if we're being honest. Like the movies have connected in like very small ways, if that. They minute. They've been movies. They've been fun. For the most part, I've enjoyed them. But this was the end of a phase entirely. And it's like, it feels like they're actually connecting at the very least, especially if you go with that the post-credit sequence. But go see it. I think it's definitely fun. They do some interesting stuff with the villains, and I'll get into that in spoilers, but there's a specific comic thing that I was curious about costume-wise, and I was like, oh, they did a great job. I personally think they did a great job costume-wise for the character that I won't give away. But if you haven't seen it, go see it. Thunderbolts is really good. I thought it was really fun. I'm very excited to see Fantastic Four. I'm looking forward to how that one's going to end up playing out as well. And then after that, I believe is Doomsday is next, after obviously Fantastic Four, and then we have the next Spider-Man movie, and then Secret Wars is after that. So that's it. And there might be time to slot something else in. We're like, surprise, we got like another couple movies coming out, but we'll see what happens. Also, Spider-Man, they do like a weird thing with Spider-Man where it's just like, let's just slot him in between like like magnanimous giant Avengers moments, or like just crazy things that happen. Let's just like slot him right in. Like as soon as something happens, we'll just put him in either like right after or in between the moments. So they always like throw him in like around the craziest events that end up happening. It's either the in between is what we're gonna have now, or previously it was like the exact aftermath of what happened there. So it's very interesting the way they tend to handle like where they end up placing these Spider-Man movies. But I'm looking forward to that because I hope it's just good. I just hope that next movie's really good. But that's it, non-spoiler wise. Go see the movie. Obviously, I spent no time talking about the movie, just where Marvel is as a whole. But I think it's fair to talk about that because of the way things have been treated as a whole. Like I said, for me personally, I haven't been on this kick of like, it's just been horrible. Every single movie is really bad and all of it sucks. I haven't felt that way at all. Like the one that I think I like the least is the same one everyone likes the least. Some people might say Marvels. I would say Quantumanium. Like that is the one that I think was like the worst one we've had in quite a while. Like I just didn't enjoy that movie. Even when I was like watching, I was like, it's fun. It's got the fun of it, but it's not even as fun as the other two movies. As far as, you know, the other two Ant-Man movies. And then of course the way it ends, you know, with how Kang was defeated and stuff, is like, yeah, you do make them seem like less when it's a bunch of ants that beat him. Everyone brings it up, but it's like, it's a fair point. It's big ants. It's big ants, and he had laser beams that were literally evaporating people. They were just like, they got hit. Oddly enough, it was akin to this movie when you think about it. But he was hitting people with lasers that just poofed them out of existence. And then ants. It's fair. It's a fair critique. But we're gonna get into this movie. So if you haven't seen Thunderbolts yet, definitely check it out. You want to see it before it's spoiled because the way the movie ends is definitely good. Like the thing that they do is very fascinating, and it actually ties into some stuff. I won't even say what it actually ties into, but it ties into the future of the Marvel universe. So it's actually exciting to have something that ends, but it makes you look forward to like, what the F comes next? What do you do after this thing? So go see the movie. It's definitely entertaining. And of course, story-wise, it actually makes you excited for the future of the MCU. So full spoilers from this point on, and we're gonna do this super quick, just like how she died. Taskmaster, gone. And that's it. And we don't need to discuss it any further. I don't really care. Didn't care that much. We're doing a full reboot anyway. A bunch of people are gonna be dead. So that's done with that. But everybody else, very cool. I like the way it was all handled. I thought the action was good. I thought Sentry was really well done. I love, like a lot of people do, I think everyone, if you don't like the visual of what they did for the Void, I don't know, you're crazy. Because that was pure art. That's just pure art. Like just the absolute like silhouette, but like the little bead of his eyeballs, absolutely beautiful. I don't know how they did it, and I can't wait to see some behind the scenes on that. But I was like, that is pure art. Like that looks absolutely amazing. And we'll talk about the effect of what the Void does towards the end of this review. But I liked him. I thought it was really good when he was actually like the Sentry, and it was like, oh, you dye it to your hair and stuff, and he comes down and he's in the full suit. Very CG fight, but of course I'll get to that. I'll kind of do some stuff in order. But overall, I just want to say I think they did a great job when it comes to both the Sentry as well as the Void, and also Bob. It's just Bob. So we'll get to all that and, you know, more of my specific thoughts as he kind of builds up throughout the film. But of course, the main focus of this movie, the #1 character, of course, is Yelena. And I thought she was good. I don't know if they're officially going to call her like the new Black Widow or how they're going to handle that, because they, of course, don't really do like any of their superhero names like at all. Like even US Agent isn't called US Agent, but they reference that in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like when Valentina first got him, I think that was like the first thing she says, like, oh, we'll call you like US Agent or something. But they don't call him that. They don't really go by any of their superhero names or monikers or anything like that throughout the film. But they're all in here, and their personalities are in there, except Ghost maybe. Like she barely feels like she really gets much. She gets like a couple moments like, hey, I gotta wear this suit or my whole body's like intangible and I can't control it, stuff like that. So we get like a little bit, a tiny itty bitty little bit for her. And I will say, I wish if there's one thing that I truly wish we got in this whole movie, is seeing what everyone else had to do when they went into the Void. That was like the one thing where I was like, I would love if they spent an extra, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. You could just do like a couple minutes per character and just handle it that way for everyone else that went in behind Yelena, and just see one memory. It doesn't have to be like every memory. It could just be, you know, one memory, and that's about it. It could even be the same memory, because that's what happens with Yelena. It's like the worst thing that happened. So it would probably be the same if we saw it for Walker as well, and it would still go back to him seeing himself, you know, in that moment where he like really lost his family. But just one for each character, like that thing that instantly triggers them as like the worst thing that they've done or gone through or whatever. I would have loved to have seen that at the end of the film, and I think that really would have helped, specifically for Ghost, because out of all the characters, if you think about it, she's the one that has like the least information on her, even though she was the villain of Ant-Man 2. even in that, she was really just the villain. Like the explanation was just the fact that like, oh, well, she's intangible because of this experiment or whatever happened. But that was really it. It wasn't like you got to know who she was, even in that movie as a villain, which is kind of why people don't like the second one as much. You don't really get much from the villain of that movie, who was Ghost. And then in this, we still don't really get that much. We get like a small spigot of information on her character. And it's like, I actually do kind of want to know about her character, especially if she's going to be going forward into Doomsday, and who knows who's going forward after that. Well, you know, some people, we saw those chairs. They aren't gonna, not all those chairs are, you know, coming back. They're gonna like move some of those chairs out of the way for Secret Wars, just so you guys are aware. Not everybody's gonna live, because they're gonna be killing people, they're gonna be rebooting people, so that probably means they're gonna be recasting some characters that die. Some characters probably won't even die, but just get like reset in general, just because the actors might leave. I don't know. There's gonna be a lot of interesting stuff going into those two films, so I hope she sticks around, because we barely gotten to know her, but we'll see what happens. But that definitely leads the way for a more accurate Taskmaster to come into the fold. But starting off with Yelena, I thought she was great in the movie. I thought the way they handled, obviously, who would have expected it? You know, even in the first trailer, it's like, oh, she's kind of bored with everything she's doing. But the way that they actually dive into it, you know, in the trailer is one thing. It's like, oh, I'm kind of just bored with what I'm doing. And then when you see the actual movie, like you see the whole sequence, it's like, oh, this is more than just like, oh, I'm bored with just being an assassin and murdering people. It's like, oh no, she's like messed up right now. Like this was way more than, you know, like they say it in the trailer, but you don't really get it, the exact sense of it, where it's like, oh, she's depressed. Like she's like just lost. She has no one. She lost her sister. They go through the element of her with Red Guardian and how they don't really talk. And I love the way that was handled towards the end of the film as well. But the way they go through everything, and she's just like, it's all the same. I go through, I kill a bunch of people. Love the sequence of her, the top down view of the hallway sequence where she's kind of recounting everything she does, and she's just killing people left and right. I'm of two minds of it, because I like this sequence and I kind of like the fact that it was kind of dark, but at the same time I was like, it's oddly dark, isn't it? Like I know she's sneaking into a facility that's not really like up and running, but it was up and running enough to have like a dozen guards. So it was like, couldn't there have been like one extra light so we could see a little bit better? But I did like the fact that it kind of helped hide how many people were there, and maybe that's a part of why they did it, because I'm sure there were people just standing, and as the camera moved, like, okay, now you go in, but you couldn't see them like until they started moving. I was like, oh, I literally couldn't see that guy like in the corner of the screen, and I'm sure they were just standing still like in their marks. But it was like, oh, well, if we do it like this, so we can have this sequence play out in that manner. But if there was a little bit of light, they'd have to like run in off screen, which I still don't think would have been that difficult. But I thought it was interesting, because I was like, half of me is like, visually, this is very cool. I like scenes where they just let something happen where you can barely see it and it's just dark. And then another part of me is like, I really like to see the action though. I like to see what's going on in the kicks and the flips and stuff. So I was like, of two minds of it, where I was like, aesthetically and like artistically speaking, it's a unique fight because it was so dark, and I was like, I kind of like that. And then the other part of me was like, but I'd really like to be able to see where these people are, versus, oh, now I see them right as she's countering or something. Like I want to see like the room. So two minds of it. Ultimately, I thought it was pretty good, and it didn't, you know, it's not like it took me out of the film, but I was definitely thinking like, I kind of want to see more, but also I kind of love the fact that it's like a dark fight sequence. Like, and just part of me really loved that. So I liked her going through that moment and being like, oh, this is what people say, this is what people do. And then she gets to the scientist, and I like the fact that she didn't listen to the guy, where she's like, oh, it'll save the world. And he's like, no, it'll destroy the world. And she just kept rambling, because she was like so out of it and everything that she'd done over and over again. She didn't hear any of the fact that he was saying like the exact opposite of everything she was saying. It was like, no, it'll destroy the world. We got to stop all of this stuff. It's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, she thought she was going to beat him. And then he pulled out like the special scalpel on her. And it was like, oh, snap. And then, you know, he blew his own face off. I was like, huh. Things went a little bit different. And then she had like the tiny explosive that made the largest explosion ever. Like she pulled that little thing out, and it was like, okay, she's gonna blow up the lab or whatever. It took out the whole effing floor. And she does it again at the end of the movie, where it's like, this little thing packs a lot of punch. It's absolutely insane. So I thought that was really cool the way they handled that. And then of course her going to see her dad, and he's like, oh, I'm so fulfilled and stuff. And then of course he's like, you know, when she finds out she wants to quit working for Valentina, he's like, I would scorch the earth for her, or whatever he said. It was like, I thought you were happy. I was like, I was lying. Like, look at this. So I like the way that they handled that, and like their distance and stuff. And then of course at the very end, him being like, you know, I wasn't there and I didn't know how to be, you know, I'm late, but you know, hey, I'm here right now to help in any way I can. Like, you're still my daughter. I see, you know, you see all of the bad things that you've done, but I only see the good stuff. And he brings up like memories of her as a kid and how happy she was. And she's like, I don't remember any of that stuff because of everything that she's gone through as, you know, a widow. So I love the way they handled their relationship and them getting closer. And of course, Red Guardian just being the silly character that he is. But once it gets to the point of them all meeting up together in like the secret facility where Valentina's like, all right, we got one last mission. You want a clean slate? You know, Walker wanted a clean slate. Yelena wanted to do something more public facing so she could feel better about the things she did, not just murder people here, there, and the other. And it was like, okay, go ahead and do this thing. Take out this person that's trying to sneak in. And then of course, she just sent everybody to kill each other. It's like, wow, if there's 2 moments in this entire movie where I felt like they could throw in the classic line of like, that bitch. And it was when they all found out that she sent everybody to kill each other. And the very end of the movie, when they let her in, or she led them all into the press conference, and it's just like, that bitch, like she just gets away with it, doesn't she? So I thought that was a very interesting moment where it was like, oh, she sent everybody to kill each other. And it was like, all right, that works 1/3 of the time. We'll say it like that. It works 1/3 of the time, or 1/4 of the time, I mean. And then it's like, all right, well, now we got to figure our way out of here. Also, who the F is this guy? He's Bob. He just shows up out of nowhere. He's just there. So I love the way that was handled, where it's like this weird mystery and they all have to work together because they're all about to be incinerated. And then they end up making their escape, and then they get to the elevator and they do something that I have to praise this movie for. And I don't even remember what I was watching like a couple weeks ago where they did it. And I'm like, they never show that because there is no actual answer to it. It's like almost impossible. And it was the elevator scene when they all go back to back, and then they get to the top and it's like, oh, what do we do now? Like, we can't push off because then everyone else just drops down. They never show that. Go back to anything you've seen where they do that. I'm sure other shows have done it at some point, but for the most part, every time characters are like, oh, we're stuck in this well, what do we do? What if we went back to back? It's like, that's genius. They show them go up, it's like, we're doing it. And then they cut to the next scene and they do something else and then they're out. And I'm like, they never show it, because what do you do when you actually get to the top? Because if you're going back to back, if you got 2 people, it's different, because you can actually have, typically speed, depends obviously how far apart they're actually pushing, but you can have one person just push all the way off and they obviously have to turn really fast to make sure they grab the ledge. But the person facing the ledge that you can grab, they would just be pushed towards it to grab it. And then the other person just kind of spins, maybe even just grabs onto that person. And then it's easy. But when you have 3 people or 4 people, it's a lot harder to do that maneuvering where it's like, okay, we'll all push off or whatever. It's like, no, it just doesn't work. The physics do not allow for that to happen. One person can do it and everyone else has to figure it out. And of course, the way they do it, Walker was like, I got it. And then everybody falls, but they all end up catching each other. So it works out fine. But I was like, I have to mention that. I knew when I first saw the movie, I was like, I have to mention in my review that they have major props for me personally, because no one ever effing does it. They always say like, that's a great plan. And it's like, it's not that great of a plan. Once you get to the top, how do you get out? No one ever shows it. And I swear this is the first time I've ever seen them actually solve that problem in the film. And it went exactly like I always thought. Like, well, it doesn't really work. It doesn't work. It works to get you up there. If someone's up there to help you, you got it. You know, you got a third buddy up there, they'll grab somebody, or like you both put your arm out and then you figure it out that way. But if it's just the 2 of you pushing back to back, like I said, with 2 people, one person can, you know, you just push to an edge. But if it's 3 people, that you can't have one person push left and right, then the third person automatically throws everything off. So very fun, very fascinating. I was happy that they threw that in there because no one ever does. So just wanted to throw that out there. Go back to anything you've ever seen. We'll go back to back. Great idea. And then they cut. They don't show them. They never show them get out because it doesn't really work that well. But after that sequence, of course, they're all busted. Valentina already knew because her right hand, she was kind of like, hey, this is what's going on. They're escaping. Of course, Bucky was talking to her, trying to, you know, get some things going. They're trying to go for the impeachment. And I love the way that was handled. You know, they all get attacked. They all have their own plans. It's like, hey, this is what we'll do. Let's work together. And then, of course, everything falls apart. And that's what led to the sequence that we see in the trailer where Yelena is, you know, they're fighting people and stuff, and then she starts shooting at Walker and it's like, hey, where were you guys at? It's like, where were you? It's like, the explosion, you know, blew things up. It's like, see, too many variables. It's like, okay, he was right. He's an a-hole. Of course, they referenced that the whole effing movie. But it was like, he was actually right about that one. He was like, too many variables, and he was 100% correct. So I was like, okay, that's actually kind of funny. But they end up making their escape, and then he ends up being an a-hole again. It's like, don't worry, guys, I got this. And it's like, you need to identify yourself. And then he's just like, no. It's like, what do you mean no? Like, you couldn't think of any extra other way of being like, guys, seriously, like, you want like any garbage plan to try to play it off. He just went like, no. It's like, okay, that's a failure. But of course, Bob ends up saving them. And that's, of course, when he finds out he has powers, and they all find out he has powers somehow, because they look up in the sky. It's like, is that Bob? It's like, how could you possibly think that's Bob? How could you even see him? It's dark. It's nighttime. I don't understand how they would even know that he flew up in the air. They already drove away like far enough, and then they could see him in the sky. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. They should have been caught off guard by the explosion. They should have just been like, man, that's sad. Like, they should have been talking about how he was dead and have like no concept of even visualizing that he was in the sky, because they would not be able to see that. It made no sense. And then they should have just been caught in the explosion, which is the first time they were caught in a flipping vehicle with no damage, but we'll talk about that in the Bucky sequence. But of course they get out. They have the little funny moment where they mention like Dr. Phil and stuff like that. I thought that was a funny thing. It was like, it's not on TV anymore. It's like, it's such a random line to throw in, but it was actually funny to me. So they go through that sequence. They're walking through the desert, and then finally Red Guardian shows up because he was the driver for Valentina, so he knew what to do. But I guess he just didn't have her number. I mean, they hadn't talked in a year, so I guess that kind of makes sense that he wouldn't be able to just call her and be like, hey, she's gonna try to kill you. But he drove all the way out there. They end up in their limo. Everything's pretty cool. It's bulletproof-ish, which I thought was hilarious, because I'm like, did he just say that for no reason? Because I'm almost confused at that point, because he's like bulletproof-ish. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he plays the music and stuff, so all that was funny. Anytime someone randomly throws in Genuine's pony, it's hilarious, so I appreciated that. But they have a decent little action sequence. I like the fact that they had defenses for everybody. Like Ghost is like, all right, I'll be right back, and then they just instantly hit her with like the sonic boom, and she's like, oh, I can't do anything, and then Walker just has to pull her right back in. And I was like, okay, they have the defenses set up for that. Valentina was obviously just waiting to kill all of them. Just at a moment's notice, she was just waiting to get rid of everybody, all the evidence. But of course, they still have to fight back. And then Bucky shows up. He's super cool. He takes out all the trucks. He does the cool thing where he shoots off like the hook winch, and then he just grabs it and like slams his fist in the ground, flips the whole effing car, and everybody like, yeah. And then he does actually shoot the limo, and once again flips him over. Everybody's totally fine. Like the whole thing flipped over. It was crazy, but everyone's good. They all get out, and then they're trying to explain like, hey, this Bob thing happens. That's when he reveals that Walker lied about being able to work one day at a time. That's actually where the Dr. Phil thing came from. Him be like, oh, that's how I keep my family and do the secret crazy stuff as well. It's like, work one day at a time. But of course his family was gone, and his wife left him and took their son. So that's how he ends up revealing that. And then he doesn't believe anything that any of them are saying until he gets the phone call from, I think her name was Mel, actually, was Valentina's right hand. And then she's like, hey, this is what's happening. Dude's name is Bob. This is some crazy stuff is happening. Sentry Project, all that. And it's like, okay, well, we're gonna go stop this. Stop Valentina, and then we'll impeach her. No big deal, no muss, no fuss. You guys are coming with me. You got nothing better to do. Let's work together. We'll go do this. And then they go do it, and they just ram through the place. It was like, oh, that was the plan. He just drove right in. They beat up a bunch of people, and then Valentina's like, Jesus, I left the door open. Just please come upstairs. Like, you're messing up all this brand new tile. She bought the Avengers Tower, so everyone was like, is it going to be the Fantastic Four that did it? Who owns it? It's Valentina. So it goes right back to the Avengers. By the end of the movie, it's still the Avengers Tower. It's the Watchtower, but it's the Avengers Tower again. So I thought that was interesting. But they go up, and it's like, okay, you're going to prison. We're taking you down. It's like, actually, you guys are rebels. You're all bad, and the Sentry's here to murder you. That's how this is gonna go. She got Bob and was like, hey, I understand it. And she has her memory of her dad being killed, which they don't really go into, but I assume that was kind of the defining factor, because she does say a line. I don't remember if it was there or if it was like later in the movie, but there's a specific line she says where it's like, there are bad people and there are worse people. I think it was actually, it was after, it was after that happened to her, where she saw the vision of her dad dying, and it was before the Avengers showed up, or the Thunderbolts showed up, because she was talking to Mel, because she knew that she was having a crisis of conscience, and she was like, there are bad people, there's the bad guy, and then there's the worst guy. And I think that was the defining moment, like her seeing her dad killed. That was the moment. Like, clearly her dad did something, because it was like, you thought you would get away with this. If you're dealing with a guy that just will stroll up to your house and just pop you one in the chest right there, you did some stuff too. Like, you're not just like a happy-go-lucky dude who's like a great guy. You have to tell your daughter, don't tell anybody where we live or anything like that. So clearly her dad was doing some bad stuff, but he was the the guy that came to their door was the tougher guy. He was the he was the worst one. Killed her dad, and that's kind of how she got that mindset. And we don't get anything else from her, but it's just that clearly that was like the defining factor. But Sentry popping up was good. She had her hero, her god, as she called him, which backfired on her super fast. But that fight sequence, it was cool. Definitely a little, not even a little, it was too much as far as the CG for him. They had some moments where it was just the way he would move. And I like the fact that they were like, hey, we're going to portray him as a character who is flying, but there are going to be portions where he like flies low to the ground, so he just like slightly moves. And even the way he was just naturally moving, I was like, there's some things he did 100% where I was like, I don't get why this has to be CG, where he literally would just like move to the left or move to the right really fast or just block something. But it was because it was all in sequence, and then it would end with him doing something fake. And I was like, man, I kind of wish they just had him do the actual motions before like the flight part, and then just, you know, body double him at the flight thing. But they just kind of CG'd the whole thing. Maybe it was easier that way or something, but it was definitely noticeable. And it's just an unfortunate consequence of, you know, CG. Like when you do, like it's when you do small movements that actually make it more obvious that it's CG, and it's such an unfortunate balance. But it still looked good for the most part. And of course, I actually thought Red Guardian was dying in that scene. I think a lot of people did, because it was like, okay, they killed Taskmaster. I think everybody expected that. But for Red Guardian, it was like he sent him out the window, and I was like, oh crap. And then he stopped him midair and then brought him back in to hurt him a little bit more. And then of course he whoops on everybody. He bends the shield of Walker, which I thought was a hilarious joke, where they just kept it. It was still kind of bent. Even in the post-credit sequence, I was like, it's not as bent, but it still looks bent to me. So I thought that was really funny. Like they just never officially fixed it, but he bends it, and then he's just stuck with that the whole movie. I thought he was gonna drop it, but he never does. Like he still keeps the bent shield, and I was like, it's almost weird that you kept it, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's probably like adamantium or something, or vibranium. I don't even know what his shield is actually made out of, if I'm being totally honest, because I don't think it was the original shield. I think they gave him his own shield, so I have no idea what his shield is actually made out of, now that I really think about it. So who knows? But the point is, it's supposed to be super tough, and it usually is, unless you fight the Sentry, and then he just bends it around your arm and then just slaps you around a little. So I was like, that's unfortunate. But he was very cool. As the Sentry, I thought he was very cool. I like the fact that they had all the crazy powers. He has like 1 billion powers in the comics. I didn't realize he had as many powers as I recently found out. But in this, I was like, okay, so like he stops the bullets. He does the Neo thing. Not only did he stop the bullets, but he sent the bullets back with such force that when they were blocked, it knocked 2 people into a wall. I was like, that's a lot of force for him stopping the bullets and then sending them back. Like that's insane. Like that, I thought that was really cool. So I was like, oh man, he has way more powers than I thought. Like he can basically just do force fields on people, on himself and stuff. And obviously the excessive amount of strength where it's like no one's hurting him. But I like the fact that Bucky tried. Like everybody was knocked down, and he's like, he's kind of the de facto leader of this team. In a sense, he is. And so he's like, all right, F it. And he's like, he takes all his stuff off and he just tries. He goes in with some super punches, and it's like, it's cute. It's cute that he tried, and then he just catches it. He heats up his hand a little bit, rips it off, and just smacks him in the face with his own hand. It's like, well, that was disrespectful. But after that, everybody was like, okay, we're getting up, we're leaving in the elevator right now. And I thought that was kind of funny how they had the definitive moment where they're like, we're fucked, let's leave. And that's what they did. Like Valentina's doing her speech and stuff. It's like, oh, you guys can go ahead, and we'll, let people know you're the bad guys, and he's gonna come down and kill you all. But she lets him get on the elevator, and then they all take off. So I was like, okay, they all got welled on. Yelena tried for quite a while to just be like, hey Bob, please, like, don't do this. And she tries talking to him, but it doesn't work. Surprised she lived. I mean, he just flew up into the ceiling, cracked her back, dropped her down. It's like, okay, like superhero stuff. I mean, if Kingpin can do the things he can do, it's Marvel Comics. Like peak human physicality in Marvel Comics, they can survive things that we wouldn't, in the real world. But everybody gets well done. That's when they have their moment where it's like, all right, we all split up because everything sucks. And then things get real crazy. And that's when it gets super exciting, because Valentina's like, all right, go down and kill him. And he's like, well, I'm not going to do that. They're not a threat. And it's like, but I'm telling you to. It's like, well, why should I listen to you? Why should a God listen to you? It's like, and then I love the line where she's like, you're kind of throwing out God a little loosely. It's like, well, you said I'm stronger than all the Avengers, and there's at least like one God on the team. And then it's like, oh yeah, this is that moment. And she tried the kill switch, he chokes her, and then Mel comes in, saves the day, and they think it's all said and done. It's like, that's unfortunate. And then the Void takes over, and a beautiful visual for him as a character alone, and then him just blasting people into the shadow realm. Absolutely amazing. And of course, everyone's like, how the F are these people gonna defeat this? Like, he's just, you're just a smear, you're just a piece of smoke on the ground. What are you gonna do? What is anybody gonna do against that? Love the way they handled it, but visually, super, super cool. Love the way that started off, and them just going through this process of like, what the F is that? What is going on? Everybody has to start saving everybody else, and they start just, saving as many people as they can. And they have the official hero moment where they all like push this giant, slate of rock, and everybody's like clapping and stuff. And it's like, yeah, like, oh, cool. Like, we did it. And then Red Guardian goes in, he saves the little girl, and the big piece of concrete, like, he just splits on his back and stuff, and he saves the little girl, and it's like, don't worry, bow, and she's gone. And it was just like, that's good. Doesn't make sense why he wouldn't have hit Guardian instead of this random little girl that was effed up, but that's what he chose to do. He was like, I kind of know Guardian, but that little bitch, she gone. So crazy moment where it's just like, oh, that's effed up. That's crazy. And then of course all the madness starts happening. People just start getting popped out of existence. Gotta be crazy. You live through the Marvel universe and it's like, oh my God, it's Blink Part 2. Like that's gotta be what these people are thinking, right? Like you just poof into a shadow. It's the Blink happening all over again. So absolute insanity. And then people are just, panicking and freaking out. And then Yelena understands, like, I think I know what to do. And of course she walks into the void. Great moment for Red Guardian, because of course he doesn't understand. And then they have the conversation, and then Walker's like, no, I think she might be right. I think Ghost might have a point. This crazy thing happened when I had an interaction with Guardian, or with Bob, with Bob earlier. So of course we get to see it from Yelena's side of things, and she's going through the memory that she had a couple of times. Like she tries to stop it, then she gets stuck to a tree. Then eventually she's able to break through and get to another bad memory where she's doing the gun and she does it first, and then everyone else's hands get whipped. I was like, Jesus, Widow stuff. And then, her being a drunk and things like that. And each time she gets a little bit closer to finding Bob. And then eventually she gets to him and they start having their conversation. And it's like, this is the safest place, this is the best, nicest room so far. And it's like the attic above where his mom's being beaten. And then he tries to step in front of his dad. And then his mom tells him, like, you always make things worse. And it's like, no wonder he's so effed up. No wonder he was in a chicken suit on meth. Hilarious sequence. I forgot that they even referenced that. I forgot that was in the movie. I remember seeing that clip a super long time ago, like just a picture of someone in a chicken costume for some reason in the Thunderbolts. Why is this happening? Who knows? And then it's like, he was on meth at the time. It just happened. But everyone comes in to be a part of the team. They end up helping him and Yelena in the end when there's like the crazy tornado of stuff flying around the room. They bust through all the different memories, and then they finally get back to the lab where he first became the Void. And then they have an interesting way of doing it where you think he has to defeat the Void, but his rage is actually what allows the Void to take over him. And then it's like, no, they actually have to pull him back and just keep him calm and happier versus being angry against the depression. And it was like, this is a really cool way to do it. So they all pull him back. They have a unified moment. They bond with him, and then they save the day in a sense. And I love the fact that he had memory loss, where it's like, wow, so what happened? And it's like, are you serious? And I just thought that was really funny. And then of course they see Valentina, and then they try to chase her down. And then it's like the new Avengers. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that's how they did that. And it was great. And then of course it's like, we own you now. And I thought that was good. But I love, and I have to point it out, everyone cheering for them and Bob just being on the side like, and he's just looking at him because it's just blank slate on this dude. And he's just like, wow, that's so cool, guys. You guys are amazing. And it was like, hilarious. I just thought that was super funny. But I love the way that movie ended. And then they show the Thunderbolts and they rip it, the new Avengers. Very cool idea. And then the first post-credit sequence, hilarious. They're on the Wheaties box. It was very good. I loved all the main, or the specialty credits that they did. They even had the guinea pig from the beginning of the movie when they were doing like the crossing the Delaware thing. They had the guinea pig on there, so that was funny. But he's on the Wheaties box. He tries to convince the lady. He's like, does like that with the box and stuff. I thought that was a great sequence. And then it goes through. And then, like I said in the beginning of this, I think we get the best post-credit sequence we've ever had. And it was long. It's probably the longest one we've ever had, which is probably why I think it's the best one. It's a year, I almost said a year and a half. It's a year and 2 months later. And I love the fact that they did that, because it's like, all right, when we get to, well, not when we get to Fantastic Four, because that's going to be a different universe, but when we get to Doomsday, it's been at least a year and 2 months since this happened. And they go through the process of being like, people aren't really 100% in. I love this, the B Avengers and all that stuff. Like, do we trust them? Do we know these guys? Any of this stuff? And then it's like, hey, talk with Sam. Things didn't go too well. And I think that makes sense because of the fact that most of the characters, like Sam would know these people way better than anyone else would. Like for most people, it's like, oh, it's just the B Avengers. Like, I don't even know these people. They're the new Avengers. Like, who's this random woman that was like, who is this lady? Granted, she was dealing with the impeachment stuff, so people would be familiar with her a little bit. But it's like, she just made the new Avengers. But for Sam Wilson, it's like, well, I'm sorry, I know who Ghost is. I mean, you talk with Bucky, it's like, excuse me, you're on a team with who? John Walker? I think we all know, like, there's a whole show about how they know that guy. So I can understand why that conversation was like, yeah, it didn't go too well, where it's like, hey, we kind of have to do this thing. Obviously they have to give us more details, because I would have probably explained to him like, hey, we're the Avengers because of this stuff. We can use her resources for this. Maybe he even explained that. It was like, why wouldn't you just send her to prison? Like, it's a valid argument, by the way, where it'd be like, why wouldn't you just impeach her then? Why use her resources? Like, we can just rally together to use our own resources. Why would you even use her when you could just send her to prison and then we still form our own team anyway. So they'll have to give us the real details on why that conversation failed. But for me, I kind of understand it. He's in a team with like some bad people, or at the very least, like 2 bad people. Kind of up in the air when it comes to Yelena, like, you know, the dark stuff that they've all done. Not that the Avengers haven't killed a buttload of people. Like Captain America is like Captain America, but he's murdered like a buttload of people. You can watch any of the movies. He was in war. Like, like his thing is he's a Boy Scout, but he's a murderous Boy Scout. He was in a war. He murdered tons of people. He has an amazing sequence where he murders a buttload of people on a boat. Like, they killed a buttload of people. That's what Sam walked around with 2 Uzis. They're all about murder, if we're being honest. So, but I can still understand with some of the things that have happened with some of the characters in particular on that team. I can understand why things didn't exactly go the way that they might want, where it's like, hey, it all just works out. And he's, you know, trying to copyright it and all that stuff. Love the costume that Guardian comes out in, where it's like, hey, we're the Avengers with a Z, and he's got like tied on his arm, and it's like just every logo imaginable. He's just like, this is how we do it. So I love the way they did that, and just the conversation they had, where it's like, you know, where they reference Bob, and it's like, you know, you could be the Sentry, and then Walker's like, what are we gonna do? Just like ride the Sentry into space? And it's like, yes. Can you imagine like the Red Guardian rides the Sentry, and they just show Bucky where he's just like, what the fuck is this dude saying? Like, why is he saying this? I just love that sequence. I also like some of their costumes. I thought it was really good. I love the beret. I'm a sucker for a beret. That's mostly due to like Jill Valentine from Resident Evil. But I was like, I like the beret on US Agent. I thought that was kind of cool. So it'll be interesting to see where we go. And of course it ends with, you know, Fantastic Four coming in. So that was kind of clear, but I was happy about that. And we'll see what that actually means when we get to Fantastic Four. I think it does kind of solidify what everyone was kind of saying, like, well, that world is trashed. I think that's unfortunate, but Galactus has to eat. Say la vie, you know. But amazing post-credit sequence, also very long. But the new Avengers and Bob will return, and I'm definitely looking forward to what we get next from these characters and just how in the world this stuff plays out. Like, it's almost, with the way they do it, granted it's only a couple people, but with the way they kind of set it up, it's like you can almost do granted they've done Civil War, but there are also 2 Civil Wars in Marvel Comics. But it almost felt like you could kind of do a Civil War again, where you have the new Avengers, and then are they going to do West Coast Avengers? Are they just going to be like, hey, I'm not going to actually fight Bucky? Like, he's like one of my best friends. I hate John Walker, but I love Bucky. Like, I understand Yelena's perspective, and obviously like that's her dad. Like, they're, you know, like 3 out of 5 people, kind of cool. I'm sure they know about Bob. I'm sure, you know, Bucky told him like, hey, this is who Bob is. This is what happened. Like, he was the Sentry. He was the Void. You know, just a lot to discuss there. So we'll have to see all the details and stuff next year, I guess. But I'm definitely looking forward to what we have coming up. Obviously, Fantastic Four, I'm very excited for, and we'll see what happens. I'm so curious what in the world they're planning on doing with Doomsday and all the characters they plan on having in that movie. Like, it better be 3 hours long. Honestly, I want it to be 3 hours. Like, it could be 4 hours. They might need it with the amount of people they want to put in this movie, most of which need a lot of time. Like, we've seen Shang-Chi once. He needs a lot of time in that movie. We need a lot of characters to have a lot of time. So we'll see what happens. But this was really good. It was definitely fun. Very excited for the future of the MCU. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about the Thunderbolts, and of course the MCU, where we're headed, the 14-month gap, what you guys think about them being the new Avengers and the absolute insanity that comes from that in every regard, from the world of the MCU to the other heroes and everything that some of these characters have done in the past, whether we've seen it or not. In Ghost's case, we haven't seen a lot, but Assassin, that's just how it goes. So we'll love to know your thoughts on all things MCU right now, but especially the Thunderbolts. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.